C4D, long time no see. Today, I want to share with you a practical technique. And I'm going to show you now a seamless animation of random effects. Start today's C4D teaching time. Create a sphere and create a new null object. I'll explain why later. Then create a new matrix object, mode selection object. Select the sphere, hold down the left mouse button, drag, and drop it to the object input parameter bar. Distribution mode selection volume. Add random effects while selecting matrix objects. Display the sphere model and check the X-ray function. Select the random effector to switch to the effector panel. There are 5 random modes. The default random with Gaussian and final sorting are not animated. Noise and turbulence will have animation mode selection. You can set the speed of the animation and set the parameters according to your needs. Note that the index check is calculated for each individual object, not the whole. It will be more random after use. Turbulence mode has the same effect as noise wave, but the shape is different. When set to global, noise is spatially fixed. Even if the cloner itself is moving, each clone still gets an editable random value. The UV noise pattern will stick to the surface of the clone and move together without resampling. I believe that many designers with many years of experience do not know what this parameter does. The last random pattern is called sorting, which can be understood as the seed of random noise. After in-depth exploration, did you find the problem? Yes, there is no parameter called a loop. Is everyone a little lost at this time? Why is there no such important function? It's time for this mystery to be revealed, and today I'll explain in detail how to achieve it. First, increase the number of matrices. Select random effects and click on the field parameter bar. Hold down the left mouse button and find the shader field in a bunch of field types. Default selection of shader field load noise material in shader parameter. Here, we must first understand the frame rate of the project. The default is 30 frames per second. The current project is 90 frames, and it is 30 frames per second. So that is the total animation time of 3 seconds. Then the cycle period input parameter is 3. The animation speed does not affect the loop point, but only the speed of the animation. Play the timeline to see if the animation loops seamlessly. Now it's safe to say it's perfectly seamless animation. The random position value can be adjusted appropriately to make the animation more layered. But the effect of our example today is that we need to do random animations inside the sphere. So let's not let the dot stray too far from the sphere. Quickly adjust to satisfactory results. Then create a new clone. Pay attention to the hierarchical order of the object outline and develop good operating habits. Create a new sphere, specify it to the clone child, and set the clone object mode. Change the mode to object and assign the matrix to the object input field. Set the sphere parameters. It is currently too large. After the C4D 2024 version, the matrix drawing point size setting was added, which is very useful. Change the size of the sphere by 2 centimeters. Select the clone object and add a random effect device. In order to facilitate scene management, add the suffix scale to the random effect. The inner ball now has a loop animation, but the outer ball is stationary. Never add any animation to the vector of the matrix, or there will be problems. The problem needs to be solved in a tricky way, using instance objects here. Select the instance object and add a displacement deformer. Select the deformer and specify it to the instance object child. Select the deformer to switch to the shading panel, and the shading parameters are loaded with noise. The cycle is the same as 3, which has been explained very clearly before. Now there is an obvious problem, which is that there are too few polygonal faces of a sphere. Select the number of sphere adjustment segments. Select the noise parameters of the displacement deformer and adjust the global size. After simple adjustment, a relatively satisfactory form has been achieved. Now there is a problem to be solved, which is that the inner ball flies out of the sphere. I chose to use the method of volume generation. Select Clone Object and press Alt to add Connection Object. Then create Volume Generation and Volume Mesh. It is necessary to emphasize the concept of first having the volume and then the grid, so that the order is not confused. Create Null and rename to organize the scene. Select the Volume Generation object, switch to the Object panel, and load the clone of the connected object. Modify the voxel to size 1. Then load the instance object with the displacer added. Modify blend mode to intersect. Now we will delete the extra part of the clone ball. If you are not satisfied with the current internal ball shape, you can adjust the parameters at any time. Hide the outer sphere first, so that you can focus on the production of the inner shape. Even though we used a volumetric grid, the result is still pretty mediocre. I hope these balls have some fusion deformation, similar to the feeling of liquid. Even if you continue to increase the number, it will not improve and achieve the desired effect. What should be done? This kind of technical problem doesn't trouble me. It's very simple. Select any replacement deformer and press the left mouse button to cooperate with Ctrl to copy. Close the volume object and display the clone object for easy modification operations. First, cancel the welding. This will affect the animation effect. Adjust the noise parameters. The most important is the global size parameter. Finally, adjust the height of the deformer to 5 centimeters. If you are not satisfied, you can fine-tune the parameters. Restart the volume object to see the final effect. Add the volume smoothing filter on the current basis. Is the observed effect of adjusting the mixing intensity satisfactory? Now there is a similar delay problem. If you don't want this problem, you can specify the clone directly to the volume child. Then there should be no problem of out of sync. You can try to increase the number of clones and expand the range of positions of random movements. What specific input is worth seeing depends on your needs. I'm just here as a guide. There's no point copying parameters. Select the instance object to continue copying one. Displacer also copy. Close one of the displacers. Replace the noise material with the color and default to white. Adjust height to negative value. Keyboard NB turns on wireframe coloring display. Adjust the parameters and you can see that the ball is squeezed inside. Then activate another displacer. And that's the technology I'd like to share with you today. I believe this approach can be applied to many different animation effects. I hope to see other interesting effects from this approach. If you are interested in my files, you can join my Patreon to get them. The C4D files I study every day are shared with you as soon as possible. Finally, thank you to the members who have supported me or are currently supporting me. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Bye.